Halloween, the one night of the year that the veil between our world and the spirit world is thinnest, allowing monsters to walk through the night. But sometimes the true monsters don't come from without, but from within. This is Night Owl. Good evening, one and all. I'm Ted, your host, and as you can probably guess, this is Night Owl. Tonight, we're off to Deer Park, Texas. The year is 1974, and like the rest of America, Texas was being consumed by the all-powerful flames of a disco inferno. But before anyone breaks out their Bee Gees records, could you all do me a favor? Could you please hit like, subscribe, and share? It'll really help my channel out. Oh, and don't forget to turn on your notifications so you'll know when our new content comes out. Anyway, it was also the home of the O'Briens. There was Ronald, his wife Daneen, and their two kids, Timothy and Elizabeth. From the outside, they seemed like a normal family. He was the breadwinner. Well, sort of. They would all attend church where Ronald was the deacon and even sang in the choir. But not everything was sunshine and roses in the O'Briens' household. In fact, dear old daddy got himself in a bit of a financial hole, to the tune of $100,000. Holy crap, do you realize that's like $653,740 in today's money? I mean, how does that even happen? I could see if he was running a business or something, but as far as I can tell, he wasn't. Well, anyway, old Ronald started to cook up a plan to dig himself out of this little financial grave he was in. But for his plan to work, he was going to need an accomplice. And what better accomplice could he possibly have than Halloween itself? Halloween night of '74 rolled around, and Ronald took his two kids, and his neighbor as well as his neighbor's two kids out trick-or-treating in the Pasadena, Texas neighborhood. They'd go to one house, knock on the door, collect their candy, and go on to the next, knock on the door, collect some candy, and on to the next, and so on, and so on, and so on. Then, they came across a house and knocked on the door. Nothing. They knocked on the door again, still no answer. Growing a little impatient by this time, the kids decided to go to the next house. Ronald, however, hung back for a bit, but he was able to catch up pretty easy, and when he did, he had 5 pixie sticks in his hand. He explained that after everyone had moved on to the next house, the owner of the house finally made it to the door and gave Ronald the pixie sticks. Ronald then gave each of his kids one and gave both of his neighbor's kids one each. And at the end of the night, they bumped into a 10-year-old kid that Ronald knew from church, so he gave the last of the pixie sticks to him. Later on that night, Ronald's son did what most of us did at that age. He begged his father to be allowed to have some of his Halloween candy before going to bed. Now, according to Ronald, his son asked for the pixie stick specifically, which he said yes to. In fact, he had to open it for his son because it was sealed with a staple and Tim couldn't open it. Upon tasting it, Tim complained that it tasted a bit weird. So his dad gave him some Kool-Aid to wash the taste out of Tim's mouth. Tim started to feel poorly. He said his stomach started to hurt. No sooner had he said that than he had to run to the bathroom to throw up and go into convulsions. His father claimed that he was holding Tim in his arms as he was being sick when Tim went limp. Timothy O'Brien passed away on the way to the hospital within an hour of eating the pixie sticks. News of Tim's passing spread across town like a wildfire. Parents showed up to the police station in droves with their children's freshly collected candy in tow. All of them were concerned that that candy could have been poisoned as well. But the truth behind Tim's passing wouldn't be revealed until his autopsy. His autopsy showed that Tim passed away due to a lethal dose of potassium cyanide, which he received from the pixie sticks he consumed. And the only pixie sticks that was handed out that Halloween night was the ones that Ronald had claimed he was giving by the mysterious resident from that one house. At any rate, the police had to gather the other pixie sticks, which, for the most part, was easy enough. They were able to gather 4 out of 5 pixie sticks, all unopened, right away. The 4th and final pixie stick was missing. The parents of the 5th child went nuts. They tore apart the downstairs and the upstairs in search of this pixie stick. Then, the parents decided to check their son's room. Within his room, they seen that he was fast asleep, and within his hands was the missing pixie sticks, still unopened. He was unable to open it because of the staple that kept the wrapper closed. All 5 pixie sticks has now been accounted for. They had the 5 pixie sticks tested by a pathologist, and what they discovered was that there was enough cyanide to unalive 2 adults. And in the others, there was enough cyanide to unalive an adult 4 times over. At first, Ronald couldn't remember which house it was that had given him the pixie sticks, which was kinda odd seeing how, according to the neighbor that was out with them, said they had only gone down 2 streets due to the weather. And the thing that was a little bit weird is that none of these houses handed out any pixie sticks. But after taking the cops through the neighborhood a few times, Ronald pointed out one house in particular. The house he pointed out was the very same house that there was no answer at on Halloween night. He claimed that after the others moved on to the next house, the resident of that house did indeed come to the door and give Ronald the pixie sticks. The only description he could give of the dude was that he had a hairy arm. But there was a slight problem with that story. It wasn't possible that someone from that house handed him anything. You see, the reason he didn't answer the door when the kids knocked was because he wasn't home. He was at work, and that was backed up by over 200 witnesses. So, with that revelation, that left the police with just one suspect. The only person who had touched all 5 of the pixie sticks, Ronald Clark O'Brien. Upon realizing this, the police started to take a long, hard look at the dude. And what did they discover? Well, to start with, the guy had a bit of a problem holding down a job. In fact, he went through 21 of them in a single decade. He was actually all set to lose his 21st job for theft. And not to mention the $100,000 worth of debt he was in. As well as the bank loans he defaulted on, his car was all set to be repossessed, and his house was about to be foreclosed on. Of course, all of that could have been avoided if he just was able to hold a job for longer than a few months. Yeah. He was such a winner, all right. Now, how was he planning to get rid of his crushing debt? Was he planning of getting and keeping a job to pay off his debt? Maybe even working a bit of overtime to do it? Nah, of course not, that's just crazy talk. No. Instead, he decided to take out multiple life insurance policies on his own kids, which he hoped they'd pay out after they ate the pixie sticks. If successful, the payout from all the policies would have been about $100,000. Geez, he's really father of the year material, isn't he? In fact, the day after Tim passed away, the dude called the insurance company to see about cashing in on the policy. Now, I know what you're thinking. That explains why he gave his kids the pixie sticks. But what about the other 3 kids? I mean, what the hell did they do to him? The answer? Nothing. He just thought that if they passed too, it could throw the police off his tracks, thinking that it was more random than it was. Now, even though they never found out where or even when he bought the cyanide, they still arrested him for what happened to his son. He was charged with murdering his son, as well as 4 counts of attempted murder. His trial began on the 5th of May, 1975. Ronald pled not guilty to all charges. At his trial, they brought in a chemist that knew Ronald, and he testified that during the summer of 1973, Ronald had asked him how much cyanide it would take to be fatal. And they also had the testimony from a chemical salesman who said that Ronald asked him how to buy some cyanide. His brother-in-law and sister-in-law both told the court that, at Tim's funeral, Ronald had said stuff like how once the insurance was paid out he was going to take a nice long vacation, and he was telling them about all the stuff he planned to buy. Wow, I bet it's kind of rough seeing a dude all broken up like that, isn't it? Then, it was time for Ronald's wife to take the stand. She agreed that her son Tim asked if he could have a bit of candy before bed. But she said that the pixie sticks was not Tim's idea. It was Ronald's. Oh hell, he pretty much forced it on their son. She also claimed that she knew nothing about the insurance policies Ronald had taken out on the kids. As for Ronald, well, of course he had a defense all lined up. And what was that defense? It was inspired by an urban legend. You know the one I'm talking about. The one about the mad poisoner that hands out poisoned candy at Halloween to unexpecting children. That story has been going around and around for decades. A story that almost every town has. But there is a little problem with that urban legend. There is actually no documents or news articles that states such a thing has ever really happened. In the end, his defense didn't work, and on the 3rd of June, 1975, it took a jury a mere 46 minutes to find him guilty on all counts. And it just took around 71 minutes for his fate to be truly sealed. His sentence? death by lethal injection. This case and trial gained fame throughout the nation. And thanks to the media, Ronald became known as the Candyman. Once he hit death row, as you can probably imagine, he wasn't really all that popular when it comes to his fellow inmates. I mean, he did snuff out his own kid's life after all. And most inmates isn't gonna like that much, seeing how a lot of them are fathers too. Originally, Ronald's date with the Reaper was set for August 8, 1980, but he got it postponed. In fact, that happened a lot. At one point, it was going to happen on Halloween in 1982. Now that would have been some poetic justice right there. And not only that, but it would have ensured that Ronald made it into the history books as the first inmate to meet his fate by an injection in Texas. But it got pushed back again, so that honor would go to another inmate. But on the 31st of March, 1984, his luck ran out. He got to enjoy his last meal, which was a T-bone steak, fries, sweet peas, salad, some rolls, and Boston cream pie for dessert. Man, now I'm starting to get hungry. He, of course, had the opportunity to utter his last words, and they were, and I quote, "What is about to transpire in a few moments is wrong. However, we as human beings do make mistakes and errors. This execution is one of those wrongs, yet doesn't mean our whole system of justice is wrong. Therefore, I would forgive all who have taken part in any way in my death. Also, to anyone I have offended in any way during my 39 years, I pray and ask your forgiveness, just as I forgive anyone who offended me in any way. And I pray and ask God's forgiveness for all of us respectively as human beings. To my loved ones, I extend my undying love. To those close to me, know in your hearts I love you one and all. God bless you all, and may God's best blessings be always yours. Ronald C. O'Brien, P.S. During my time here, I have been treated well by all TDC personnel." Wow, he just kept going and going, didn't he? At any rate, his end came shortly after midnight on the 31st of March. Outside the prison, there was a group of people cheering. I think they had hopes that Ronald could hear them as they put the needle in his arm, so that the last thing he heard was the crowd's chant of "trick or treat." So ends the life of Ronald O'Brien. For the rest of us, life went on. His wife divorced him right after the trial. She ended up remarrying. The guy who she married did not only marry her but adopted Elizabeth. Now, we really haven't talked very much about Elizabeth that much during this video, have we? But do you want to know something? I think I feel the most sorry for her. I mean, think about it. There's her dad, someone that she is supposed to be able to count on to always protect her. But instead, he turned out to be a monster. She knew what he did to her brother. She knew what he was planning to do to her. Imagine trying to go to sleep with that thought in your head. That must have been rough. That's one hell of a legacy to leave your kids. And I truly hope that she had a wonderful life because she really deserved it. But how can I sum this guy up? Well, his name was Ronald O'Brien. He was a lousy husband, a horrible father, a liar and a thief, as well as a murderer. But after October the 31st, 1974, the whole world just knew him as the Candyman. So what do you think? Think back to when you were a kid trick or treating. Did that urban legend about poisoned candy impact on any precaution you had to take? I know in my case, when I was a kid, if I got anything home made, it was chucked out immediately. But how about you? Please let me know in the comments. And as always, please remember to hit like, subscribe, and to share this video. It really does help me out. Until next time, remember, be you good or be you wicked, everyone deserves justice. Good night.